Chess opening theory is endless. You cannot memorize it all, plus your opponent can always play whatever random move or a tricky gambit, dragging you into an unfamiliar territory. So what do you do about that? Fortunately, we have a perfect example to learn this skill from. About one of his famous matches, Capablanca said, "I played without having ever opened a book to study the openings." And today we'll discover his rules to play openings based on understanding, not memorization. In this game, Capablanca is playing black against one of Hungarian's strongest players, Havasi, and Capablanca plays knight to f6. Now, we'll discuss several key rules from Capablanca, but the first and probably the most important one, he formulated himself in his book. He stated that the main thing is to develop the pieces quickly, get them into play as fast as you can. And yes, it sounds cliche, and yet it gives you the focus, the main idea to think about, and allows you to not overthink the rest. So you've got your pieces, bring them into play as fast as you can. Now white plays c4, and then pawn to e6. The next idea is about pawns. What do you do with your pawns? You've got a lot of them. Should you move them or not? And again, and how? And here is the rule. Make only a few pawn moves to fight for the center and open up your pieces. So Capablanca was basically suggesting that out of your pawns, you definitely want to move these two, your most central pawns, but also it's very important to limit the quantity of pawn moves because, again, let's not forget the main rule. Rule number one, the main thing is to bring your pieces into play, right? Pieces, not pawns. And therefore, he was pretty much always eager to move these two central pawns, but other than that, he was always second-guessing himself and thinking whether it's really important or not. Anyways, knight to c3, white develops the knight, bishop to b4, pinning the knight with the Nimzo-Indian defense, queen to c2, potentially supporting the knight, pawn to d5. As we discussed, Capablanca really loved moving these two central pawns forward because as you play pawn to d5, you occupy one of these central squares, you do control the other one, and you also provide more space for your other pieces to be developed later. Therefore, it is a perfect opening move. Now, knight to f3 and then pawn to c5. That is another move that Capablanca played quite often, but I would say that nevertheless that is a secondary thing to play because again, these two central pawns, you want to move them pretty much always in your every game that you play. As for the c pawn, this is a secondary mission because here, if you move it forward, yes, it fights for the center, but as for helping you develop your pieces, this is already more questionable. It provides a little bit more space for your queen, but other than that, it does not really help your development. Therefore, moving the c pawn is kind of, again, additional, acceptable, but again, other than that, he was really cautious with moving his pawns. Now, pawn takes d5, and here is the first really interesting situation. Now, how do you think about this? Would you recapture with a pawn, with a knight, or with a queen? Let's recall Capablanca's own golden rule. It is to develop your pieces and to get them into play as fast as you can. And simply put, initially, at the beginning of the game, you've got a bunch of pieces standing on the last rank. And your job is to bring them into play, move them forward. And here Capablanca captured it with a queen. Now, why not with a pawn? That would not develop a piece directly. And as we said, you got to limit quantity of pawn moves because you want to bring your pieces out. Now, how about moving the knight forward? Yes, that is an option, but the knight is already developed. And again, your main job is to bring pieces out of the last rank and get them into play. Therefore, here we captured with a queen. Now, of course, the question is, can't white simply capture it? And the answer is no, because the knight is pinned. So developing your queen is fine as long as your opponent cannot chase it, cannot use it as a target and push it back. But right now, that is not the case, and therefore queen takes d5 is perfectly fine. White plays pawn to a3, challenging this bishop. Of course, the bishop cannot just run away, otherwise the queen will be lost. Black trades on c3, and now white reinforces the center. Now knight to c6. There's another subtle, but also very important rule. Now, let me take this move back. What do you think? Which move is better, knight to c6 or castling? There is another less known but also super effective rule. When possible, develop with a threat, because there is a very known rule, develop your pieces in an opening. All right, everyone does that. But if you can develop and attack at the same time, that is even better. And for that reason, Capablanca prioritized developing a knight because that puts pressure to the central pawn. Now, compare these two scenarios. If black were to castle, now at this point, white can play any move he wants to, right? Versus if we play knight to c6 and we add one more attacker to this pawn, now white has to address this threat. And white actually played pawn to e3, which protects this pawn, but at the same time, barricades his own bishop standing on c1. Now it can't get out because it is restricted by his own pawns, which is also great for black, and only now Capablanca castles. Now, of course, castling is still important because you anticipate that quite soon the situation in the middle of the board can become more open, and then it can get dangerous to keep your king right there. Therefore, definitely Capablanca always aim to castle early in the game, preferably in the first 10 moves. Now, white goes bishop e2, black trades in the center. What do you do now? Again, develop your pieces, pretty straightforward. This bishop hasn't yet been developed. Capablanca plays b6 to develop it right here. Now, you may wonder also, why not bishop d7? That was an option, but the issue is that here the bishop is greatly limited, right? Still by black's own pawns and pieces, and it has nothing to do after that. That's why he decided to put it here and then relocate it to this long, juicy diagonal. Now white goes knight to d2, and I think that is another very important and interesting moment of the game, because the white player was not a random guy, right? It was a super tournament. White player was one of the strongest players of Hungary. He represented his country in numerous Olympiads, etc., right? He's a really, really decent chess player. And yet he's violating one of the classical opening rules. Do not move the same piece twice in an opening, which is exactly what white is doing here. So why would a strong, experienced player violate such a known opening rule? Well, I suppose there were a few reasons. First off, like it sets actually a nice little trap. If black was seduced by this pawn on g2 and captured it and attacked the rook, that would actually backfire pretty badly because of bishop to f3, attacking the queen, x-raying and defending the rook. And once the black queen moves, that would lose this knight on c6 because white attacks it twice by his bishop and queen. That was the trap. I certainly don't think that he actually was hoping to catch Capablanca with such a little cheap trick. But much more importantly, he was probably concerned that black would put the bishop onto b7 and that there would be this long-term pressure of the bishop and queen along this long diagonal. If, let's say, white were to castle, now bishop to b7, there is a little bit of a pressure, and potentially you can fantasize about some checkmates in the future, in the long run, you know, with the bishop and queen aiming at the square g2. So perhaps I would actually think that knight to d2, it was more of a defensive measure. He thought, okay, I'm gonna play, which he did, after bishop b7, played by Capablanca, he thought, I'm gonna play bishop to f3, chase this queen back, and neutralize the pressure along this diagonal. And here's what Capablanca himself thought about it. He thought that clear beats clever. And these simple opening rules win games, not because it's such a massive secret, but because most players get easily distracted by something else. Such as in this case, white is violating the rule don't move the same piece twice in an opening because of blah blah blah. He wants to neutralize, he wants to relocate the bishop and some other things. And Capablanca was way easier than that. Here are the simple list of rules, let's just follow it, and that'll allow you to play consistently, to not make mistakes, and to keep playing well. Alright, now the queen is attacked, Capablanca retreats it back to d7. As we know, for the queen it's important to position it in such a way where it cannot be easily attacked by your opponent. That's why these central squares of the second rank, also called home rank, usually is a good position. Now white castles, rook to c8, bringing the rook into play and also x-raying the queen. Now white is careless and just plays something like this, the knight takes d4 would be a very unpleasant surprise. In the game, white noticed the threat and played queen to b1. Alright, now the opening stage has finished. What do you do next? Yes, white played one inaccuracy, knight to d2, but overall his position is of course very solid. And overall the white player, Havasi, was known for being a very solid, nice defensive player. Now, for Capablanca, just to give you some context, it was very important not only to win the game, but to win the tournament in a dominant style. Because 2 years prior to this game, he unexpectedly for everyone and for himself lost his world championship match against Alexander Alekhine. He's sometimes pronounced Alekhine, maybe that name is more familiar. And therefore, after that, he was basically on a revenge tour. He was eager to prove his dominance. He was like a wounded lion who wanted to still claim that he's the king and also to force Alekhine into a rematch. And therefore, he needs to play aggressively, he needs to win. He goes knight to a5, he starts advancing forward. Also, what added fuel into the fire is that into the same tournament, there was also another participant, Rubinstein, who was another great legendary player, who also was eager to become the world champ. Therefore, again, for Capablanca, it was very critical to prove that he's by far the best and nobody is near. Now, after an exchange of bishops, bishop to b2, now white also more or less completes development, and now black needs to decide what to do in the middle game, which is another cool question, because if you think about it, how would you play here as black? The challenging part is that there are plenty of moves that would make some sense, right? You can play h6, providing an escape square for the king. You can move this rook somewhere. You can move this knight, this queen, this knight. You can move this pawn, like you can do whatever, right? So how do you decide? Well, there are different moves that might make sense, but what's important is to understand the overall strategy. What are you trying to achieve, right? In an opening, it was develop your pieces as fast as you can. All right. And in the middle game is to advance your pieces until they start creating threats. Because as you keep advancing your pieces, eventually, Capablanca played queen to a6, maybe aiming somewhere there, eventually they will start targeting your opponent's pawns and pieces. Now white played rook to e1, maybe to cover up that square. Now knight to d5, Capablanca keeps advancing. And now rook to a2, a little bit of an awkward move, but somehow white needs to bring this rook into play. So I suppose he was going to play a bishop to a1, which would clear the path for the rook, even though in a little bit awkward fashion to be brought to an open file. Now rook to c6, Capablanca has a much clearer way to double his rooks along the open file, bringing all his pieces into play. White went pawn to e4, grabbing the center and attacking this knight on d5. Now, where do you move it now? Again, the core idea is just bring your pieces forward until they start creating threats. And Capablanca played knight to c3, creating this fork. Now, white traded, rook takes c3. Now, I'm focusing less on middle game principles because that's a separate subject. I've got a free masterclass about that. If you're curious, I'll leave a link down below. But overall, the idea is that you want to keep advancing pieces forward. That's the core general guideline. And now initially, rook to c8 just controls the c file. We know that rooks love open files, and if you can double your rooks on an open file, that also establishes your control. Because notice that for white, it is much harder to contest the c file. If I were to try to do the same and bring the rook right there, black would be able to just grab it, and that is it. That would be a massive blunder for white. White cannot do this. And therefore, white plays pawn to h3. White feels that there could be some potential danger in the future, and he provides an escape square for the king to avoid any back rank issues in the future. Knight to c4. That is a favorite plan of Capablanca, to attack opponents' pawns, because they are the smallest, the easiest, and the slowest targets, therefore very easy to catch them. Now compare this to checkmating your opponent's king. That is way, way harder and requires a lot more effort and a lot more risk, while attacking your opponent's pawns usually is risk-free. Now pawn to a4. Now Capablanca jumps forward with the knight hitting the white queen, but more importantly, isolating this rook on a2, which allows black to gobble up the pawn on a4, and now black is a pawn up. Also, rook to c2 threat is there. White plays rook to e2, potentially to cover his home rank. And now, you can find a move that Capablanca missed. So I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. And in the game, Capablanca played pawn to b5, a perfectly logical and normal move, but he missed out on a sudden tactical opportunity. So the thing here is, there is a move queen to d1 check, but the issue is if you play right away, maybe the king can move or white can retreat the rook back and, kick the queen back. That does not win the game right away. But black could first trade off this knight on f3, which would ruin white's pawn structure and also eliminate basically the only defender of the king. Now queen to d1 comes with a massive power. White can no longer cover with a rook. Black would simply capture it. And otherwise, if the king moves anywhere, black can invade the first rank and checkmate white on the next move. That was the most energetic and the strongest way for black to play. If you found this tactical opportunity, congratulations, you outdid Capablanca. Now, he played pawn to b5 with a much simpler idea. I've got a pass pawn on the queen side, let's just move it forward. The d5, white is trying to seek counterplay in the center, and he also creates his own pass pawn there, pawn to b4, but black is faster, and also overall his pieces are more dominant. Now, queen to d2, white is potentially hoping to support this pass pawn, but that is a mistake because now pawn to b3 hits the rook, and black keeps expanding with a tempo. Now rook to c2, now this pawn is not only advanced, it also supports the rook, which starts putting pressure all around. Again, that key idea, as you advance your pieces, they inevitably start attacking your opponent, and that's how you basically play the middle game. Now queen to e3, black trades on b2, and now knight to c4 comes with a fork. It's also interesting that knight is a really tricky piece, because initially the knight to c4 move may seem like a blunder. Like, hey, what if white simply trades here, forcing this exchange of queens? But in that case, do you see what black would play? Of course, it's not just to trade queens. That would basically lead to a draw. Knight to b2, This is a tricky move that grabs the rook and also protects the hanging queen, and here black would win. So let's take this back, and in the game after knight to c4, white tried the last trick, queen to c1, and if black were to capture onto b2, which they cannot do, that would ruin the game, because after queen takes c8, that is basically a bank rank checkmate. And of course, Capablanca was very careful. Not always he played best moves, but he was very consistent. He followed his rules, avoided blunders, and usually that was enough to win. So he played queen to a3 here, adding one more attacker to the rook, forcing it to move, and after that, black can easily trade queens, keep pushing the pawn, and then play knight to a3 probably, and just promote it into a new queen. Now, if you want to see how I applied all these ideas from Capablanca myself while playing, I'll leave a link down below to my free masterclass where I actually played a little bit of a similar game, but I'm explaining every single move in great details exactly how I think about it. And if you want to know the modern version of Capablanca and his rules, then head to this video right there and watch rules from Magna Carlos.